Okay, thanks guys. I'm going to just share a little bit about what I feel like I've learned in business, and I recognize just knowing some of you here that these are not principles that are necessarily new to you. So this can be a very casual discussion even, but I wanted to talk about something that I've noticed, which is how in the world of God's rules and principles, winning is sometimes looks like losing. And there's all these biblical paradoxes that we can get from the Bible and then apply to business. So whether or not you subscribe to the Bible, one thing that's undoubtable and undeniable, I should say, is that there's good principles. If you follow what the Bible says, even if you don't have the faith or call that your religion, if you follow what the Bible says, you can certainly improve your life, your relationships, and even your impact in the world. So that's kind of the framework that I think we're talking about this. And so a little bit about my background. I am married, 2 kids, they're 6 and 9, and I have a financial planning company right down the street at the IBM building. And so we help people with their investments. We help them to manage their money, to make decisions about their money. Most of our clients are close to retirement. And so what we do specifically is we help them to arrange their money so that maybe the income from their investments can replace their salary. And that's how people retire, is that they have another source of income to live off of, and that's from their investments. So that's my background a little bit. Grew up here in Hawaii and studied, and that's where I am now. So the 3 principles are these. The first shall be last. Can we see okay?
Yeah.
Is that all right? The first shall be last. Pain to gain. And the greatest is one who serves. And these are, when you think about it, these are paradoxes, and they're not new to you, whether or not you've read the Bible. But these are talked about in detail. And also, there are strong examples of this in the Bible. So the first is, the first shall be last. And this is what it says in the Bible in Mark. It says, but many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. And I think in this world, we strive so hard to get to the top of the pile. But Jesus is an example of the exact opposite of that, because people predicted that there would be this Son of God who is going to be born and is going to change the world. And so they were looking for him to come in some kind of big flash or bang, but that's not how he was born. He was born in a manger, and he lived his life very obscurely and under the radar. And that's really just not the life that Jesus lived, which is the traditional, the way that a king would live, the king that would somehow change the world. And so he went from this pattern, from being favored. He was the Son of God living in heaven, and then he lived a humble life. And then from his humble life, he was later promoted after he accomplished his mission, which was to die and to rise again. And so there's this story in the Bible of Joseph, who also did the same exact thing. Joseph lived in this family, and he was the favored son. And his brothers hated him because he was the favorite. So he was sold by his brothers into slavery. And then he went on to Egypt to serve as a slave, and then he was put wrongfully into prison. And then after that, he was promoted to the financial advisor to Pharaoh. So he helped Pharaoh manage the resources of all of Egypt. So he was basically the second most powerful person in the world. But that's the story of Joseph, that story of Jesus, and that's kind of how people went from being last to later being first. And that's exactly the pattern that I feel like I'm living through personally. And you guys, I'm sure, have similar stories. But when I was coming out of college, I was so proud of myself because I got this job at Merrill Lynch, and they hardly hire out of college. And on top of that, I got to be the youngest Rotary president in the state. And so I was thinking so highly of myself. And at a young age, you know that pride comes before destruction and the fall. And so in 2008 was the financial crisis, if you guys remember what that was like. And a lot of the world in finance turned upside down. And so I went from going on this recognition trip to New York City to be recognized for something Merrill Lynch related. The very next month, I lost my job at Merrill Lynch. I was laid off, actually. And that was such a humbling time because at that time in my 20s, that I felt like was my identity in a very unhealthy way. I was, again, just way too proud of myself for what I thought that I had done at that young age. And on top of that, I just started dating my girlfriend, who is now my wife, Renee. And so we just started dating, and I'm just starting to meet her family for the first time. And so when you meet someone for the first time, this is Renee's family, her aunties, her uncles, all the people that she wanted to introduce me to. After, hi, my name is Clifton, then the next question is, what do you do for a living? That's just what people talk about in small talk. And so I was in between jobs, was my response as I was really getting to know Renee's family. And it was just a really humbling time. And so I went through this period of really being broken in a healthy way. And I think that's what God needed to do in my life to help me to be last and to be comfortable with that and to not, to break that pride and that identity of thinking that I had put myself in a situation. I needed to lose that and to be fully humbled and to do it at a time where I was learning to be vulnerable too. And I think that that's how God set me up in a way where I could now find this new path, not to serve myself, but to serve God's purposes. And so coming out of that, I had opportunities to rebuild my career in financial planning in an independent world. And now we started our own company and we're doing well. So I think God is now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to follow God and to be obedient and to do things that are part of His plan rather than my own personal plan. And that's what it looks like. But God couldn't trust me to do that until I was broken and humbled. And so it was a nice time of struggling and trials and a little bit of chaos on the personal side during that financial crisis of 2008. At the time, by the way, the reason I had to get laid off was because Merrill Lynch went from a stock price of $97 to $17, and then they were bought out by Bank of America. And so it was just during that transition time that God kicked me to a place of just being humble, and I there could rebuild. So that's principle number one. And I know that probably things are coming to your own minds where last is first, and you can look around, you can see how that's true all over the place. But the next principle is pain to gain. And what the Bible says is no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but it's painful. And later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So discipline is painful. And the difference, by the way, between discipline, which is point number 2, and trial, which is point number 1, is trial is something that happens to you. And God allows things to happen to us to sometimes put us to a place of humility so that we could be last before we could be promoted. But in pain to gain, this is not a trial that we choose. It's a challenge that we choose to, this is a challenge that we choose to undertake. It's a challenge or an exercise that we choose for ourselves. So one thing that my sons and I talk about a lot is getting good at hard things, So the way that we grow is we get good at hard things. One of the hard things that my boys are still trying to get good at is drinking celery juice. And so celery juice is really healthy for you, but it tastes terrible. You might think that you like to eat celery sticks, but drinking the juice is hardcore. And so they're learning to get good at hard things. Another good at hard thing exercise is our older son, Ty. He's 9 years old, and he is building the discipline of doing 100 push-ups every single day. And he's been doing this since August. And it was really, really hard for him. As a 9-year-old boy, you didn't go through puberty yet. Yeah, Kenny can do it, but not everyone can. So my son, he's getting good at being sore. He's getting good at doing this as a discipline, a challenge that he's choosing, not a trial that's happened to him. So getting good at hard things. He wakes up early in the morning. Today, he woke up at 6 o'clock. I was waking him up, oh, I gotta do my push-ups today, this morning. So he gets out of bed and he's cranking them out. Like he didn't even brush his teeth yet, but he's already on his way to his 100 push-ups because he's getting good at doing hard things, which the Bible says is painful at the time, but it builds a muscle inside of us that leads to better things.
Hey, let Ty know. Tell me the story. Like last month, I told my son.
Yeah.
My son every day is doing about 100. But ever since that is let Ty know.
Really? So he's inspiring others. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. It hurts. This is something that my pastor taught me, which is duty to discipline to delight. So when we identify something that we know that it's good for us, like doing 100 push-ups, it starts as a duty. Like dad said, I gotta do this. Kenny told his son Caleb, dad said, I gotta do this. Or, it's something that you're obligated to do. That's how it starts out. But then it turns into a discipline, and the discipline is just a habit of doing the hard thing. So now it's just something that my son Ty has done since last August. So that's, he's 9 months in or something. So now it's just a habit. Like he feels weird when he doesn't do it. Yesterday, to be honest, he actually did 60 and he felt so weird. Like he felt like disappointed or sad with himself because he didn't get to finish his habit. So today he already made up for it. He did 140 this morning to make up for his 60 yesterday because it's just a habit. Like how can you not walk out the door, brushing your teeth, eating breakfast and doing 100 push-ups a day? That's just his discipline, his habit. But then habits that are good can turn into a delight. And so I'm thinking back to when I was studying to be an engineer, and Craig is an engineer also. At the time, I hated I didn't have the exercise of studying hard, but studying hard became a discipline, and then it became a delight. I used to love, I don't know if Craig, you experienced this, but I enjoyed being at the library till it closed at 10 o'clock, sometimes 12, and then going home and looking for places to study hard till 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. It became a delight. Like I just felt like it was a good thing. I felt proud of myself when I could enjoy studying hard, enjoy working hard. And then it's just the idea of enjoying the grind. So I shared with you folks how I had this career at Merrill Lynch and then it all fell down and I had to build it back up again several times. I built it back up again under one company and then we started the Mission brand, which is our current company, and we had to start it all over again. And just restarting something hard, it's a grind. Craig knows this. Ken, you guys know this. Starting a business, it's a grind, but we can look back at it and really appreciate what comes out of it. And so right now we're hiring new financial advisors, and we have the opportunity to make it easy for them. Here's some clients, here's some money, here's a base salary. But what we're choosing to do is to withhold the easy road and to let them grind through the beginning of them starting their own book of business, because they will look back at it and they will appreciate the muscles that they built in grinding through the beginning part of this kind of business. So the last principle that I wanted to share is that the greatest is one who serves. And so each of you, this is what it says in the Bible, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So servant leadership is something that we talk about all the time, but serving is something from the Bible. And there's this framework called the story brand. And so if you remember one of my favorite movies growing up, it was Karate Kid. And Karate Kid, do you know who the hero was? It was not Daniel-san. It was Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi was the guide. Daniel-san was the hero. Mr. Miyagi actually was the guide. So the person that I admire most in that movie is Mr. Miyagi. He served Daniel. He saw the potential. He put him through the discipline. He believed in Daniel could go as far as he did. And that's the idea of servant leadership. And that's what we're supposed to do in business. In our businesses, we're not supposed to be the hero. We're supposed to be the guide. And so there's this thing called the story brand framework, which teaches business people how to serve others in order to to accelerate your business. And so that's one of the last things that I wanted to share about is the idea that servant leadership is a biblical principle, making the client the hero and us being the guide.